want to continue talking about that story and wrap up our interview with David Lewis from Corruption Watch, where the report's saying that the public in South Africa are increasingly intolerant of corruption and the abuse of power by those in positions of leadership, and are more willing to hold them to account. And this is according to Corruption Watch's 2016 annual report. So, David, thank you again for staying with us here on the program. So we highlighted schooling as taking the most when it comes to complaints and corruption, and that accounts for 16%. Now, 7% go towards reports involving road traffic corruption incidents. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, that has been, and I think it's confirmed by everybody's experience. You know, this is an interesting one because it's thought to be an exchange between a single bad cop and a single motorist. In fact, you know, the rumor is that it costs a huge amount of money to even get a job in the JMPD. And then to be assigned to Bryanston rather than some sleepy suburb on a Saturday night, you've got to pay more. And so this is probably a large syndicate that is, or syndicates, that are running this kind of corruption. But the important thing about traffic, about schools, about refugees and asylum seekers is that it's very ordinary people in their daily life. This is their only contact with public servants, and this is where they decide whether to trust their public service or not, and it really needs to be dealt with. Housing is another big one, the allocation of housing.
Talk to us about also the reality of immigration, because that's another big problem. Immigration and licensing, those departments are getting a fair amount of complaints too.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are gatekeepers in the literal sense. And so, you know, for immigrants, for refugees and asylum seekers, literally, in order to get into the gate, you have to bribe the security guard. And then there are a whole bunch of gates to go through after that, where the price becomes higher and higher. And these people are acutely vulnerable. And so, you know, their bargaining power in the circumstances is very weak. And, you know, I regret to say that in a range of instances, we receive great support from the public sector institutions we have to deal with. The Department of Home Affairs is a notable exception to that. And I hope that they're going to start cooperating further. I mean, when they see what's happening in the country right now, I hope that they're going to see the importance of contrasting the behavior of many communities with a humane approach by themselves that will change views on how refugees and asylum seekers are to be treated.
You know, we could talk all morning about this, but I'm going to just ask you on a closing note. I mean, you get all of these figures, you get all of these complaints and statistics, and we talk about all of it. And yes, it's wonderful that South Africans are now reporting and opening their eyes towards corruption and are much more vigilant about it. But so what? What happens once I've reported it? Where does all this information go?
Well, you know, it goes into a very sophisticated database where we're able to identify hotspots and trends of corruption. The school stuff would not have been able to be identified without that. We investigate a certain number of them. They form the basis for policy advocacy, sometimes for litigation. We select campaigns on the basis of them. The most important thing about our treatment of reports is that we communicate all that we do and what is happening with the reports back to the public. And the idea was to encourage further reporting, and that's what's happening. There is no combating corruption without whistleblowers. I mean, that is the essential prerequisite for combating corruption. And the fact that South Africans are willing to do that, and we get, you know, a lot of whistleblowers about petty corruption, we also get whistleblowers about very serious corruption involving hundreds of millions of rand. And so, you know, I take, as I say, I take a lot of comfort from that.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you for staying with us here on the program. David Lewis from Corruption Watch. Now, you can access the entire report if you'd like to on their website, www.corruptionwatch.org.za. You'll find it there. And also, if you'd like to report anything or anything that you want to raise awareness to, that's where you can go as well. Thank you again.
Thank you.